Izuku Midoriya is born, and his quirk is a little bit different than what anybody else would really be expecting. And the reason for this is he seemed like such a nice, normal, and happy kid, but at the age of about 5, he started having these anger issues, you could say. This odd anger that would spurt out of nowhere, and he would begin to feel more powerful while angry, understanding that he somehow is getting angry, but he's getting stronger as these things are happening. He has no idea how. He doesn't know what's going on. He doesn't know how it's happening, but they quickly would learn that it is his quirk. His quirk itself is something of a anger / rage-like quirk, and it seems like his physical and mental and so many different abilities are kind of elevated when he gets angry, when he starts raging. But if he gets too angry, sometimes he loses too much control. And that at the age of about 7 years old, something happens that makes him understandably annoyed, leading him to this anger that he hasn't felt, and it felt like it was spiraling out of control, to the point where he was sitting there in his classroom getting upset, and he was losing his mind. He got so upset that he began breaking his desk. He broke it by just gripping it with his hand, and it just shattered in the palm of his hand. The desk itself broke in half, and the teacher would tell him to basically calm down, like, like blah blah blah, like, oh, calm down, like it's not that serious. And this would just make Izuku even more just outraged by what he's saying. And Izuku would begin snapping his pencils. His chair would break underneath him. The room itself would get a lot hotter, and everybody would be confused. How is he affecting the heat in this room? But it's his anger. His anger continues to kind of flourish as he gets more and more upset. But after all this is said and done, after everything is happening, ironically enough, Bakugo himself kind of gets Izuku to take a chill pill, telling him that it's all good, that everything's good, and that they're gonna later today they're gonna go have fun at the playground or something along those lines. And funny enough, Bakugo in a weird way is like a voice of reason, and it allows Izuku to actually get enough of his anger and rage out that he actually just calms down. Yes, when he gets above a certain threshold, it's extremely difficult for him to just settle down, calm down, especially on his own. But ironically enough, having Bakugo there allowed him to take a breath and actually not lose his head, at least entirely, and start ripping the place to absolute shreds. And of course, he would get in trouble for this. I mean, they would tell him no, we don't know if we can bring you back. You might be expelled, blah, 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 and all this other stuff. And yes, Inko is not happy about this, but she even tells them, as well, that if they can't control somebody who has a quirk, somebody who has a special, quirk, then what are they even there for in the first place? And of course, Izuku would end up getting kind of in trouble for this, but not expelled. And they would have I would say an easier time learning how to control his rage. Soon, Inko would tell him that they're going to start learning various different ways to calm himself down, starting out with meditation and stuff like that. And Izuku, well, he wouldn't rage out as much as he used to. Those tantrums, he would outgrow them. And around the age of around 15, he would be completely done with kind of losing his mind to the degree that he was losing his mind before. I mean, at one point he was just, if something bad happened, he would get angrier and angrier and angrier, and it would spiral out of control a lot worse than whatever happened in the first place, right? These tantrums would turn into full-blown attacks, and Izuku, well, after a lot of meditation and a lot of working with himself and working with this anger and this rage, eventually he would kind of calm it down. He would take a step back and he would take a breath, and he wouldn't be losing his mind to the degree that he was in the first place. And luckily enough, he does that. And at this point, he's a teenager, so he does have his moments of, just anger and annoyance and all that stuff. So he does get it sometimes, but he learns how to control his anger, utilize it sparingly so that it can give him an upper hand in some sort of physical capability. But overall, he doesn't have to use it that much, luckily enough, because if he gets too angry, he might just lose control all over again. And who's to say that the quirk that he has now hasn't kind of enveloped and evolved even further, because, well, guess what? He is a lot older now, so there's a good chance that he could genuinely utilize his quirk a lot stronger, and it could be a lot more deadly if they're not careful. But luckily enough, he don't have to worry about it too much, because he kind of has it under control, leading to him actually getting his first chance at talking about where they're going to go in terms of what are they going to do for heroes, and what are they going to do for this or that. And Izuku finally gets his chance to kind of listen to his teacher talk about how him and Bakugo are the only ones trying out for UA. Now, of course, both of them are pretty much looked at as people that could definitely get to UA. Two people that have definitely have the chance to get to that point. But at the same time, people wonder, is the rage that Izuku exudes, is that gonna be a bad thing? Is that going to inherently make him a bad hero? What's gonna happen if he loses his shit on somebody and they can't stop it? Because in this universe, they're looking at Bakugo as the calm one, ironically enough. I mean, they legitimately look at Bakugo as, yes, he is angry and all this other stuff and arrogant and all that BS, but they don't see it as Izuku. Izuku inherently is just, he gets angry. And he goes kind of like insane in a way. At least that's what they looked at when he was younger. Obviously him now, it's not as bad, like nowhere near. But still, they look at him as the angry one, and they look at Bakugo as the somewhat kind of calm one, which is hilarious to think about, but that is the truth. Izuku would have to really kind of take the things that people say on the chin, on this idea that he won't make it, this idea that his anger will get the best of it, his rage will get the best of him. He has to take it on the chin, and understandably, it bothers him, especially when he starts walking home. He wonders to himself, can he really be a hero if he can't control his anger the way it needs to be controlled? And how is he going to do it? Because he needs his rage. He needs his anger to be stronger, to be more powerful. So what does he do? In which, as he's walking underneath a bridge, well, he would get his chance to show off what he can truly do when the sludge villain would come out of nowhere and try to attack him. Honestly, just enveloping Izuku, and Izuku would struggle. He would be losing his head. He would be thinking, no, this is not good. This is not good. He can feel his life slipping away. He's just losing his oxygen slowly but surely. But this would anger him. He would bite down through the sludge that is entering his body, and this red aura would burst out around him, burning up the sludge villain just a little bit, and he would spit out the sludge like just this insane like Viking type of person, like a unit, spitting it out, and his muscles would flare. He would grow in size just a little bit, and he would look back at the sludge villain and he would be pissed. He would tell him that he hasn't felt this rage in a long time, and he's going to feel the wrath of Izuku Midoriya. And he begins wailing on the sludge villain. Just the aftershocks of the punches that he's sending, I mean, you could feel it from like 100 yards, 200 yards away, and he's beating on the sludge villain, even though the sludge villain is durable to an extent, but he is beating on him, making him scatter into little parts, and eventually All Might would arrive and throw a punch himself, landing on both the sludge villain and Izuku, but Izuku is able to tank it to a degree as the sludge villain is obliterated into small pieces, and Izuku, still being enraged, would look toward All Might and throw a punch, but luckily All Might is able to block it and gets the kid to calm down. He tells All Might he's sorry. He doesn't mean to. It's just his quirk. His powers is all designated through rage and anger and all that stuff, and he doesn't mean to get overwhelmed or anything like that. And All Might looks at him and tells him that he understands. He gets it, right? Some people's quirks, they work differently than others. Some things have to be understood differently than others. And this right here, it's just a stepping stone. It's just a thing for him to step up and make sure that he could get a hold of it and understand it and prepare himself to really kind of get to that point and basically get to the point where he has full control over the anger that he has. And there is a world where he can. There is. At the end of the day, there's always an opportunity. There's always a chance. And he's going to be able to do it. And he tells him that he wishes him the best, and they can't really talk much more, but he does wish him the absolute best and wishes him to do, great things, right? That's what he wants for him to do. He wants him to do great things and hopes that he ends up trying out for UA High School, in which, of course, Izuku's like, yeah, that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go to UA, and I'm going to be a hero just like you. In which All Might hears this, he smiles and jumps off with the little bits of the sludge villain. And Izuku, all he's thinking about is that he got the approval of All Might himself. And All Might is thinking that this kid, his power is immense. And it was obvious that it was. But at the same time, just because his power is strong, does it mean he should give him or the opportunity to utilize One for All? He doesn't know. And he decides, instead of giving it to Mirio Togata, he's going to hold off on it. He's going to hold off on it and really look into these other kids that are at UA. And that's what he was going to do in the first place. But he was debating with the idea of, maybe I should just give it to Mirio and blah, blah, blah. But now he's coming to the decision that, this might just be it. This might be a chance to really, really kind of see who's truly capable. And that right there is an opportunity that Izuku Midoriya doesn't know he's going to be granted, but at the same time is going to be granted, and really is going to get a chance to kind of show what he could truly do and show what he's really capable of. And after some time of training, preparing, continued meditation that Izuku, by the way, continues doing, because, he has to stay locked in with what he can do, what he's been doing, and all of the above. So he makes sure that he stays with a clear head. He trains for 10 months, prepares himself, and does all of these things. And eventually, it's time. Eventually, it is time for him to basically go to UA, and time for him to try out for UA, and try out for the UA entrance exam, which is going to basically give him an opportunity to show his skills in front of UA teachers, but also in front of a lot of other people as well. And that right there is definitely an opportunity that Izuku is absolutely excited for, an opportunity that he's going to take with leaps and strides that he possibly can. And he would do that specifically. He would get out there, and yes, he would have his normal, basic stuff that he has to get into, which is, your typical run-of-the-mill, beat up on robot, or do regular written portion of the test, and then he has to go beat up on robots. He has to get himself a little bit angry, and he decides to do something that his mother and him kind of came up with, making himself angry by inflicting a tiny bit of pain, kind of like if you stub your foot or stub your toe. You get a little freaking mad because you're like, damn, I really stubbed my toe like that, and that frustrates the hell out of you. And that's kind of what he does, and it gives him enough strength to kind of just punch through certain robots or kind of run away from certain situations if he needs to do so. But after kind of destroying a good amount of robots, a decent solid amount, he would see the 0-point robot show up, and then he immediately through his head he's thinking, okay, I think it's time to move, because probably not the best idea to try and kill that thing. That's probably not a good idea, right? It's probably not a great idea to try and fight that thing when it's not worth any points, and it's probably just asking to get hurt. But what he doesn't know is that just a couple seconds later, he'll see a girl on the ground stuck in rubble, unable to move, and he'll have a choice to be made. And that choice is to save her or save yourself. And Izuku Midoriya wants to be like All Might, So he does exactly that. He saves the girl. He saves Ochako Uraraka as quick as possible. But as he clears the rubble, picks her up and tries to run her away, he sees that the 0-point robot is getting too close and getting way too close. He tells her to slap him in the face, like now, in which she's like, what are you talking about? Why would I slap you in your face? In which he basically tells her again, like, you need to listen right now. Like, you need to do what I say. And then immediately she slaps the absolute hell out of him, and then basically like calls him an idiot for, you know, asking her to do that. In which Izuku thinks, you know what, that's perfect, because he immediately feels that slap and hears the idea of him being an idiot and gets extremely angry. And out of nowhere, he just rages out, immediately jumping towards this giant robot and kind of clawing at it, scratching and pushing it over. And he lands on the 0-point robot. He eventually lands on it and just absolutely just slams it into the ground. It doesn't destroy it immediately or anything like that, but he does pushes it into the ground, stopping it from moving and saving the girl and saving anybody else that was in the way, or the eyesight, or the LOS of obviously the 0-point robot. And of course they were able to he was able to save her and save everybody else to the degree that he wanted to. And this right here was when everybody watching realized that Izuku Midoriya, I mean, yes, he has an unorthodox way of fighting, an unorthodox kind of power, but this could be truly the next, or one of the next really great heroes, but they just don't know for sure. Nobody knows for a fact just yet. Nobody knows for a fact, if he really is, but soon I'm sure they'll figure it out, because Izuku Midoriya is granted access into UA High School. He is also put into Class 1A, but with all that said, he doesn't get the #1 spot. He's actually off by, a little bit, not too many points, but a little bit. And the reason for this is because he didn't use his rage to like a high degree early on to kill a bunch of robots. He used a lot of it on the 0-point robot, saving the girl, but those rescue points didn't actually keep up with the #1 students, Katsuki Bakugo, which is pretty insane to think about, because Bakugo went absolutely insane, destroying so many of the robots. But Izuku's not thinking about it too much. He's not angry about it. He's actually not even upset about it. He's just happy he was entered into Class 1A, and he's given an opportunity to do what he wants to do. And for starters, when the first day would arrive, when that first day, his first opportunity, he would be basically told that he is given the chance to legitimately kind of show off his quirk, right? Show off his powers. And every single person is given that opportunity. The opportunity is with a quirk assessment test. And this quirk assessment test is pretty straightforward. The first thing is you throw a ball as far as possible, and Bakugo does that, and Aizawa basically watches him do it. He says, oh, like, that was good, blah blah blah, all that stuff. But really what irritates Aizawa is the fact that these people, or these students, start saying, oh, this is gonna be so much fun, it's this, it's that. And he's like, no, we're not here for fun. We're here for business. We're here for, whatever. Like, we're not here to have fun and enjoy ourselves. And he makes that very, very, very clear. He has no intention of making things fun. He has no intention of saying or making it, seem like, oh, yeah, it's going to be so much fun. It's going to be a good time. No. It's not a good time. It's a time to train. It's time to get stronger. It's time to do certain things, right? These are the things that are basically told. And these are the things that are made very, very clear to everybody. Made very clear to, obviously, Izuku and all his other classmates. Made very clear that they better keep their heads on straight, because if they don't, the last person, the last place will get expelled. And that right there shocks them to their core. They had no idea that something like this would happen. But luckily enough, Izuku doesn't have much to worry about, because he enrages himself just off of those words, and enrages himself a little bit via, slapping his wrist or stubbing his toe. And as he does this, he's able to throw the ball pretty damn far. Nothing insane, not like to a degree that Bakugo did it, but still pretty impressive. And in terms of every other aspect, he flourishes in it. Now, he's not the fastest, but he's one of the fastest by far. He's not. He's one of, if not the strongest, like via physical grip, because that right there makes him, every loss that he does, it makes him a little bit more angry, and he's able to kind of ensure that he ends up with like a top 5 ranking very easily too, like maybe even top 3 through kind of a minor version of his rage, because his rage that he's using isn't even to its max degree. Now, he's never really seen it at its max. I mean, maybe he'll never see it at its max, because anger to that degree is ridiculous. But at the same time, Izuku is showing his capabilities, and he shows to everybody there at the Quirk assessment that he's fully capable. And luckily enough, he's not the last place, and the person that is last place is actually Hagakure, or Invisible Girl. Invisible Girl ends up getting last place, and she ends up actually, getting quote-unquote expelled. But we all know she doesn't actually get expelled, right? She gets told that she gets expelled, then she gets reinstated, gets some extra help, blah, 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 all that stuff. And then she comes back barely the next day, or maybe a day or two after, and there she is. She's back with the class, and they're back training, and that would include training with All Might himself, aka training at kind of this heroes versus villains like training. This heroes versus villains like training is very simple. Bakugo and Tenya on the villain side, and Izuku and Ochako on the hero side, and they have to make a choice. How are they going to touch the bomb? And this fight between Izuku and Bakugo is one to be remembered, because Izuku and Bakugo throw down, and every explosion that hits the skin, hits the body of Izuku, enrages him more and more, leading to him getting to the point where not a single explosion is even affecting him. And this pisses Bakugo off to the point where he decides to let loose the most insane explosion that he can with his grenade gauntlet, and he unleashes it. The entire corridor filled with an explosion, and everybody's watching and thinking, why did he do that? Is he trying to kill him? And as the smoke would clear, Bakugo would be standing there, and Izuku stands in front of it, right in front of him, asking him if that was supposed to hurt. Because as the smoke would be unveiled, there's a large gash on Izuku, like a ton of burn marks, but these burn marks start regenerating. He starts regenerating these burn marks, and out of nowhere, everybody is kind of like, no, that's ridiculous. I mean, he's a monster. He's an absolute freak. How was he able to just tank that and regenerate it all back? Everyone's watching, including All Might, and immediately Izuku would slam Bakugo into the ground and begins beating him senseless, and everybody's watching thinking, when is he going to stop? When is he going to stop doing this? When is he going to give it up? Like, he can't kill him. He shouldn't. What's going to happen? In which All Might would begin to reach for the speakers, about to say something, but Izuku would then stop, put him on the ground, and then go rushing up the staircase, and in one foul swoop would go immediately charging at Tenya Ida, not even thinking about anything else. And Tenya would be terrified. Like, his eyes are glowing, his aura of anger is just all over his face and body. I mean, this is terrifying. I mean, he's just shocked and stunned and standing still. Izuku would charge him, and he would whimper, kind of like hide away in a way, but Izuku would touch the bomb, and it would be over. Tenya's in shock, thinking he doesn't know what happened, how he did that, and why he cowered away from that moment. But there's something about Izuku that made him fear him to a degree that he never expected and he never thought would be possible. But Izuku would be the winner, and they would kind of head off, and Izuku and Ochako would be the winner. They would head off. All Might would talk to them about, yada, 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 whatever you want to say. And eventually The next day would ensue, and the next day would be at the USJ. The USJ, or the rescue facility that would change things forever and put the League of Villains' sights on Izuku Midoriya of all people. Because before you know it, when they're there, Izuku gets transported out of there to a kind of like a lake-like area. They would fight their way through and get across the lake and defeat the villains within it. Izuku would make a choice that would change his life forever. A choice that would make the League of Villains, Shigaraki, All for One, and many others realize what they're dealing with and realize who they are dealing with. Because when Aizawa is about to get absolutely destroyed by the Nomu, Izuku would jump out of nowhere, blocking the attack, and the red aura and anger in his eyes would flood his body, and they would see something, and they would realize something, that this kid is no normal guy. This kid is no normal hero, normal student. He is something else, something far greater. Izuku would begin fighting the Nomu, clashing with it, unleashing every little bit of power he has. His anger rises as he sees the student, his classmates, his teachers, and many others hurt and battered. He would then be getting angrier and angrier as each singular punch he takes, the rage would build up so much so that he blacks out. Nothing is there. All he sees is red. Punch after punch, kick after kick. It's all red. All this dark colored red, as if blood is entering his eyes. His vision becomes blurry. His vision becomes nothing. But all he can feel is his fists, his kicks, his feet clattering off of something that feels almost immovable. But at the same time, it begins to move. Izuku's rage ensues so great that eventually the only thing that would wake him up and the only thing that would bring him back is the voice of a "I am here." The arrival of All Might, as Izuku would clash with the Nomu one more time, as his body would slowly be breaking and Izuku is pushed back to the wall. He looks up to see All Might come out of nowhere and land a blow so great, sending the Nomu directly out of the USJ. And everybody's in shock, but what really happened was Izuku made the fight a lot easier for All Might. The rage that was filling his body, the power that was ensuing, there was nothing that was stopping him. It was as if it was an unstoppable force going against an immovable object. And this right here solidified everybody's idea of what Izuku was, and solidified everyone's idea of what he can really do. Izuku Midoriya, he might just be an absolute monster. And all those ideas, those thoughts would go through their heads as the League of Villains would be entirely captured with the help of Aizawa and other heroes that would just arrive. And of course, Izuku would collapse on the ground, would be out cold, and he would be out cold for days on end. I mean, everybody would wonder, is he okay? Is he going to live? Is he dead? Like, is he all right? And of course, there would be conversations about many. I mean, he would be out of commission for days. We're talking maybe even close to a week. And a lot of people would be questioning if he's even okay. But eventually he would be. He wakes up in the hospital and he basically hears about all of his classmates and what happened and all this other stuff. And he even hears about the UA Sports Festival and kind of what he missed. But there's one person that is next to him that actually surprises him quite a bit. One person that makes him think, whoa, why are you here? What's going on? What did I miss? And that is All Might. Because All Might is sitting next to him, telling him that, well, he lost his opportunity to, go out there and show people what he's made of. But he wonders, his quirk, it's so volatile. It's so crazy. There's a chance where he can lose control. And Izuku cuts him off and says, no, he has control over it. He does. I mean, but he did what he had to do to make sure everyone was safe. And All Might nods his head and says he understands. He gets it. But it scares him. It scares everybody. There's a world where he loses so much control that he hurts people that he cares about. And it hasn't happened yet, but it could. So what if they decide to grant him something, give him something? And Izuku's confused. What the heck are you even talking about? In which he tells Izuku that he has a quirk. It's known as One for All. And he believes that if he grants One for All to Izuku, that there's a very high likelihood, that it will work out a lot better for him than he thinks. And his rage will be a lot more under control, and it could be used as a modifier to make him stronger. But he doesn't have to rely on it. Not rely on this unrelenting rage that he can't control. And an unrelenting rage that if it gets too much, he might destroy everything. But Izuku tells him that if he does do this, he gives him this so-called power, this power that is of All Might himself. Who's to say that the rage doesn't take over? Who's to say that he doesn't die? He doesn't lose everything. He doesn't crumble into nothingness. Who's to say that he doesn't become the worst thing they can imagine? A villain with the power of the greatest hero alive. In which All Might nods his head and says, I know. There's a chance. There's a world, and there's definitely a thing that could happen. That is a thing that could genuinely happen. But he doesn't know. He doesn't know, and he tells Izuku that it's his choice. If he believes that he shouldn't take on this quirk, and he believes it's too much of a risk, then do so. But with that said, he still wants to offer him something. An offer to train with his old master known as Gran Torino, and quirk or no quirk, One for All or no One for All, he still wants to give him that opportunity. Maybe he can learn, train, and gain knowledge beyond what he believes. And, well, let's just say Izuku has a very, very important decision to make. And that decision could change his life, and maybe even everyone else's, forever. But that is for the next and final part of What If Deku Had a Rage Quirk. Izuku Midoriya has a choice. That choice is to take on either this quirk of what is known as One for All, or continue with the powers that he has. And there's a lot to be said about the powers that he currently has at his own kind of will. Because in his case, he's thinking to himself that this is what he wanted, right? This is himself. This is the power he's worked for forever. And he wonders, does he want to just give that up? Does he want to legitimately kind of decide that he needs someone else's powers to be the hero he wants to be? And he ends up coming to the conclusion that he doesn't want to take on this power. And it's something that is very difficult to swallow in terms of deciding not to actually take on this power, because, well, we all know that the power created, or the power that is coming from All Might himself, would be extremely, extremely difficult to turn down. And, well, Izuku Midoriya would turn it down. But he still would accept the deal with working with, aka also training with, Gran Torino. And this would be a great opportunity for Izuku. And Gran Torino helps him channel the power he already has, utilizing the rage that he can inquire from himself and his surroundings, and kind of make himself in control. Being angry is one thing. Feeling rage throughout his entire body is one thing. But it doesn't mean you can't control it. And that right there is something Gran Torino begins to teach Izuku for the next 3 to 5 days. Teaching him how to actually maintain the rage, but not overuse it to the point where he starts going berserk and starts losing his head and starts going crazy. But all of this that is happening, there's some awkward scenarios that definitely occur. I mean, that rage that he's feeling, I mean, sometimes it gets overwhelming to the point where he even tries to attack Gran Torino with malice. And as he does, Gran Torino has to basically knock him out, kick him in his face, and do all that stuff to make sure he's out cold. And luckily enough, nothing happens to the point where, Gran Torino doesn't get hurt or anything like that, which is always good. Nobody wants Gran Torino to get hurt. And of course, this would eventually lead them to basically getting a ton of training in and even heading off to Hosu City, where this is where Izuku would face off with his first ever true villain fight. And he would be facing off with the hero killer Stain. But the whole reason why he'll be even in this situation is because of another student, someone he's worked with, someone who he's been around for a while now, and that is Tenya Ida. He didn't know this and didn't know what was necessarily happening, but he came across the alleyway that it was going down at, and luckily enough, he was able to get just in time in the way so that the hero killer didn't end the life of Tenya Ida. And Izuku, well, he would see this and he would be pretty damn pissed that he's attacking his friend, and pissed that basically he is threatening the life of a student or a kid. And he jumps into action quickly, and his rage itself is allowing him to break through the really martial arts defenses of the hero killer and his really unique fighting style as well. But as Izuku is fighting him, eventually he would get cut and he would get paralyzed. But this would only make Izuku even more angry. But Izuku would focus that anger, focus it to a T, to the point where he can feel it flow throughout his entire body, breaking through the paralyzation, but then also utilizing it in a very, very normal way. Not in a way of going berserk and all this crazy stuff. He used it in a good way, and he's able to overwhelm the hero killer and almost win. But as he's about to, what seems to win, or about to quote unquote win, he even gets some extra help from an arriving Todoroki, who Todoroki does his best to back up his classmate Izuku Midoriya, and with them together, they're actually able to take down the hero killer without any casualties at all. Luckily enough, though, Endeavor does take the credit, and they don't get in trouble for anything that occurred. And they would be able to kind of visit the hospital initially and then head back to their class, or, class 1A once again, preparing for the final exams. Now, this final exam would be an interesting one because this would put up Izuku Midoriya and Katsuki Bakugo against the number one hero, All Might. Someone that Izuku is very fond of, and someone that Izuku obviously had to deny when involving the idea of utilizing One for All. But still, he's been trying to understand and utilize his rage to a better degree, and utilize the rage that he has basically incurred to really allow himself to be the hero he wants to be so badly. And that's exactly what is going on. That is exactly what is happening. And Izuku Midoriya is preparing himself to take on a threat, or take on a battle like the one he's going to be faced with when he takes on All Might with the help of Bakugo. Now, they are pretty, back and forth and pretty annoyed with each other. And of course, that does lead them to kind of arguing a little bit and blah, blah, blah. But luckily enough, Izuku's overwhelming strength allows him to somewhat go head to head with All Might, or at least keep up to an extent. And he's able to, for the most part, actually, get his head in the game and go be like the bruiser in terms of their duo. And Bakugo plays kind of like that support-like role, leading up with a bunch of explosions and stuff like that. But let's be honest, Bakugo is not very happy about this. He's not very happy at all. He doesn't want to be on the sidelines just helping out where he can. No. He wants to be the number one. And of course, right now, he's not going to be that. But for now, he's going to just give everything he can to help defeat All Might. And after a long-winded battle, they finally get the upper hand. They finally get the upper hand to take down All Might, or at least, put capture tape around him. But Izuku Midoriya's anger continues to still surge, especially with Bakugo talking smack, saying this, saying that. His anger is still flowing and going crazy. But luckily enough, All Might is able to calm him down, telling him to relax and everything is good and fine. And remember the training that he went through. Remember the training that he did with Gran Torino. This would get Izuku to chill out a little bit. But he would tell Bakugo to stay the hell away from him, like now. And he would just leave as everybody is then watching the rest of the matches, the trainings, and all of the above. And Izuku would be allowed to go to the forest training camp. And while he's training over there, all he is thinking about, all he is doing and all he is thinking about is basically controlling his rage. But the thing is, things would change drastically, because one day during the forest training camp, eventually they would get attacked. Eventually an attack on the forest training camp would ensue, and Izuku would go to help a little kid by the name of Koda, and Izuku would face off with a monstrous villain. A villain that seems to be having this overwhelming strength. Something that Izuku will face off with, and something that Izuku will have to give his absolute all to, because this guy, this freak of nature, is not willing to give up any singular inch, and is not willing to give him anything. And it seems like Izuku is going to have to make a choice, and that choice is to do anything in his possible power to make sure that Koda is safe and sound. And that's exactly what Izuku goes to do. But that's not the only thing that he has to deal with, because yes, he is fighting and he is clashing with this monstrous villain by the name of Muscular, but it doesn't mean that it doesn't come with its disagreements. It doesn't come with its downsides, because Izuku goes head to head with Muscular, and as this fight is happening, as this fight continues to happen, it seems as if things begin to truly break down, because Izuku's power continues to surge just like Muscular's, but Izuku's rage and uncontrollability continues to push forward. For a minute there, he thought he had full control. For a minute there, he thought that he was fine, that he could control it, he can maintain it. But as he thinks this, and as he believes this, he realizes that he's wrong. Because before you know it, when Muscular's mocking the little kid, telling him after he kills this guy, after he kills Izuku, he's going to end the kid just like he did his parents, Izuku's rage cannot stay tame no longer, and Izuku's rage would force him into a feat of frenzy that would allow him to overpower Muscular very, very easily, very easily. But not only would it allow him to overwhelm him, it also puts him at a point of no return, point of no return where he's not thinking clearly. He can't think clearly, and he has no idea what's going on. And before you know it, when everything is settled, when everything is done, Aizawa is there with him, asking the kid what's wrong and what happened, as this giant monster of a man lays there, beaten to nothingness, borderline at death's door. And Aizawa runs over to basically ask Izuku, trying to wake him up, and he does. He gets him out of that frenzy, but he asks him, what the hell just happened? What's going on? How did you get to this point, and what is happening? And Izuku, he doesn't know. And Aizawa would immediately try to get the villain some help, but before you know it, the villain's pulse would immediately sputter and go away, and Muscular would lay there lifeless. And Izuku would stand there in shock, thinking, he did that. He ended somebody. He can't believe it. But of course, Koda looks at it and even tells Aizawa that he saved him. That yes, he did something bad, or in theory bad, but he saved him. In which Aizawa nods his head and says he understands. But there's a line that they're trying to teach, and a line that can't be crossed. And that is that line. Izuku himself is worried now. He's terrified of the idea that he'll lose control, terrified over the idea that he'll lose control to the point where he won't be able to do anything, that he'll lose it, and everybody will get hurt, everyone surrounding him. And he tells Aizawa that he's done. He's done. In which Aizawa's like, what are you talking about? You're done, kid. You don't have to just give up. You don't have to just stop now. But Izuku tells him that imagine if he loses it and loses all control when being around, like civilians and people that need their help and all these things. And he tells him straight up, like, it's not worth the risk. And he understands that Aizawa may think differently, and maybe other people would as well, but he believes that it's not worth the risk, and he believes that this is where it should end. This is where it should stop. And Aizawa tells him, no, that's ridiculous, kid. Like, you can't think like this. You can't, think as if you are some sort of monster. You are not a monster. Like, you were there helping people. You were there trying to help people. You were there saving a kid. And Izuku says that he understands that, but it doesn't change the fact that he did something disgusting, that he did something horrendous, and that he did something that he can never take back. In which, of course, Aizawa sits there and thinks that maybe the kid is right to an extent, and maybe the hero agencies, organizations, and everybody else is going to think the same thing when this thing is brought up to them on what happened. This thing is brought up to them on what happened during the forest training camp. And before you know it, that is a conversation that happens. A conversation about Izuku Midoriya, and a conversation about him still potentially being a hero, but somehow figuring out a way to truly utilize his powers without losing full and utter control. And that is something that nobody knows for sure what they're going to do or what they can do in that regard, but that's what they're trying to focus on. Can they help Izuku? And can they get him to basically, can they basically get him to have full control? And for a while, for like, we're talking weeks to months, that's all they're doing. That's literally his entire thing. He's still studying and doing this and that. He's not allowed to actually, try and go be a provisional hero or anything like that. And all he's doing is working, training, preparing, and trying to get himself under control. Even other kind of support heroes are trying to get him proper gear and stuff like that would keep him tame enough to where his rage doesn't take over and he doesn't fully black out. But all of this, it's going to take forever. It's a process. It's going to take a very long time for him to get to the point that he needs to get to, a very long time for him to be the hero he wants to be. And of course, he doesn't want to wait that long, but he kind of doesn't have a choice. Actually, not kind of, he legitimately doesn't have a choice. He has to maintain what he's doing. He has to continue pushing on what he's doing. And that's exactly what he does. He trains, he prepares, he kind of maintains himself, tries to maintain himself, and tries to do anything in his possible, hands, and his possible kind of will to kind of push through everything, to kind of force his way through everything. And he wants to make sure, and does make sure, to kind of maintain himself to the degree he needs to maintain himself. And yeah, he does miss out on a lot of things. There's people out there that maybe could have and possibly could have used his help. And shoot, maybe there's a world where he could have helped a lot more and helped to a larger degree. He watched as All Might took on All for One and basically ended in a stalemate. He watched as the League of Villains would escape and do this and do that. He watched as Overhaul, someone that he didn't know about, someone that he didn't really know much about in general, would get away with a lot of things, and luckily enough would be stopped, but would obviously lose the life of Sir Night-Eye even though, it seems as if Mirio was even more prepared than usual. And with everything, with all of it, with every last bit of it, with everything that's ensuing, everything that is happening, Sir Night-Eye and all the above, everything that is crumbled, it seems like the hero world has to prepare for one last stride, one last thing, and they might be calling on Izuku Midoriya for this specifically, because before you know it, there would be word about this kind of war that is coming up, a war that is going to be inevitable, and a war that they're going to have to stop. And well, they feel that they're prepared, but how much are they truly prepared? And they might just need every single hand on deck. And as they're kind of thinking about this, as this is kind of going through their heads, a lot of people begin to bring up the idea of bringing on somebody like Izuku Midoriya. It gets passed through the chain of command, and everybody talks about it. Do they bring him on? Is he kind of, in control enough? And Aizawa brings up the fact that, yes, he can vouch that he is in control to an extent, but he also can vouch that they might just need somebody that's a little out of control to make sure that everybody else is safe. And ironically enough, this couldn't have been even more true, because guess what? As the war would begin, after months would pass and the war would ensue, that's what they would need. They would need a secret weapon. A weapon that the League of Villains knew very little about, and a secret weapon that they only knew that he existed in a way of having a high level of strength. But other than that, they knew nothing else. They knew very, very little about it. So when he stood his ground, when he woke up, or when he kind of landed there and everybody watched as the other heroes would take on, Shigaraki and all these other villains, Twice, Toga, and so many more, Izuku would stand face to face with a giant monstrous creature in the one and only Gigantomachia. And this was the one time that blacking out is exactly what needs to happen. And he let the rage run wild, because he would go head to head with Gigantomachia, allowing other heroes to stay focused on the mission at hand in terms of capturing and taking down Shigaraki, and they did everything they could to do so. Izuku would be basically taking on Gigantomachia by himself, getting absolutely just destroyed to an extent, but also just living and rushing the rage through him even more and even greater. And eventually, his rage would build up so much that all anybody can see is Izuku Midoriya on top and grabbing onto Gigantomachia, smacking, crashing, and just smacking the hell out of this giant creature and this giant monster. And everyone's thinking, holy shit, I can't believe this is what is happening right now. Like, I can't believe that this is the guy that we all looked at as kind of someone who was a bad kind of hero, someone that was a liability. And Izuku taking on this monster by himself, as the rage would go run wild, as the aura around him would spark, and the heat coming off of his body can be felt from hundreds of meters away. Everybody just really focuses on their own fights, but at the same time, they can't help to look and can't help to think, like, holy shit, this kid is exactly what needed to happen. This kid is exactly what was needed to stop what's been going on, and exactly what it was needed to stop and put a stop entirely to these villains. And before you know it, Gigantomachia would be put down, as Izuku Midoriya would stand on the top of an out-cold Gigantomachia, and he would scream in, not agony, but he would scream this kind of war cry in a way, and he would just shout at the top of his lungs, and everybody would turn heads. Even Shigaraki, who is on his back foot, would have his head turned just a little bit, and he would be in shock. It can't be. That was our monster. That was our end game. That was the end of them all. And you're telling me that he stopped him? You're telling me by himself he stopped him? And he can't believe it. Shigaraki's in shock, and so is every villain on the board right now. And before you know it, all the other villains would follow suit. Shigaraki would be the last one standing, but with everybody together, everyone prepared, and everyone working hard to kind of, take on and press forward, it seems as if Shigaraki realizes now that things are crumbling, and he tries to get away, tries to do something, but his little idea, his little prison break, his little war idea would crumble in his own hands, just like the decay that comes from his fingertips. And Izuku Midoriya, frankly, yes, he would be seen still as a hero to an extent, but he would still be seen as a monster. This is the same kid that fought a monstrous creature in Gigantomachia, but also is the same kid that ripped what seems to be Hero Society in shreds. Made everybody question what this kid was. Made everybody question if he'll ever be a proper hero. But Izuku Midoriya, he realizes now that he doesn't have to be a proper hero. No, he doesn't have to be like All Might. What he needs to be, exactly what he needs to be, is exactly what he is. He is the secret weapon. He is the weapon among weapons. He is the monster that slays and takes down monsters. He is the monster that will stand in the face of another one and not blink at all. And that right there is his place in Hero Society. And yes, he does continue his training, regulate his anger and his rage, and he continues throughout the next 3 years while he's at UA. Continues training, continues working. But a lot of people, a lot of agencies, when they bring him on after all the years of training and all of that, when they bring him on as a weapon, as a secret weapon that in a controlled environment they can unleash because they're terrified of him. Now, to an extent, can Izuku control his anger? Of course. Izuku's able to control his anger, even being a hero, controlling it to an extent to maintain that decent strength that he has. But it doesn't change the fact that everybody else will always be afraid of him. It doesn't matter what he did, what he does, and what he's going to do. Izuku Midoriya's rage, they'll always look at it like it's going to get the best of him. And maybe, just maybe, they're not so wrong. Maybe they're not wrong on the idea of it getting the best of him, because before you know it, I'm sure it will. Because Izuku Midoriya, he will always put himself in the acts of danger and always put himself right in the limelight to save as many as possible. And you can't always expect the unexpected, and you cannot always predict what is going to happen in a world like theirs. Because before you know it, you never know what would crumble. You never know what could happen. But what he does know is, secret weapon or not, the frontliner or not, this person that they use to fight monster versus monster, he knows deep down inside that he is still a hero, even if everybody else around him doesn't look at him that way. But with that said, that is the end of this story, the end of What If Deku Had a Rage Quirk. I'm sorry that I've been delaying for quite a while in terms of videos. That's my fault. I mean, I had a combination of family over and this and that, and everything kind of becomes jumbled. So it's been really difficult. I'm sorry about that. But I'm going to try to be a little bit more consistent. I'm going to do my best. I'm trying to figure out how I want to schedule things out to make sure that, I'm good and I can get things out at a proper time. But I hope you guys enjoyed. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. Hope you guys enjoyed the series. And that's all I got to say. Hope you guys enjoyed, and I hope all y'all have an amazing day. Later.